The tale opens in a peaceful town where tall oak trees line the streets. Like silent guardians in front of grand houses, driveways sparkled with expensive cars. Gardens looked perfectly trimmed, and every home seemed to compete for attention. Behind the polished walls of one such mansion lived Jonathan and Evelyn Harper, a wealthy couple admired for their status, business ties, and flawless lifestyle. To the world outside, they appeared to have it all: lavish cars, a sprawling estate, and a life that seemed perfect. Yet the real heart of their home was not the Harpers. It was Grace Williams, a devoted caregiver from Alabama who had spent over 15 years raising their 3 children: Michael, Ryan, and little Sophie. Grace was in her early 50s, her skin glowing with the richness of time, her eyes weary but kind. Her hands bore the marks of years spent cooking, cleaning, wiping away tears, and comforting small children through fevers and bad dreams. She was not tall, but her warm presence filled every room she walked into. Outsiders called her the nanny, but to the Harper children, she was everything. She had been there since the day Michael came home from the hospital. She had soothed Ryan through endless nightmares, braided Sophie's hair every morning before school, and filled their nights with gentle stories. Birthdays forgotten by their busy parents, scraped knees, baseball games, and whispered fears. Grace was there through it all. The children lovingly called her Mama Grace, but behind her warm smile, Grace carried a silent pain. She had a daughter of her own, Leah, a young woman fighting a rare illness in a Birmingham hospital. The medical bills grew larger by the day, and Grace sent every dollar she earned to keep her daughter alive. She often skipped meals to save money, wore the same clothes for years, and lived with almost nothing for herself. One rainy evening, after the children were asleep, she sat at the kitchen table whispering a prayer: "Lord, please help me save my child." With a heavy heart, she realized she had to do something she had never done before: ask the Harpers for help. The next morning, Grace nervously approached Evelyn, who was lounging in the living room with a glossy magazine. "Mrs. Harper," she said softly, her voice trembling, "my daughter Leah isn't doing well. The hospital bills are overwhelming. Could I possibly have an advance on my salary for a few months? I promise I'll pay it back." Evelyn looked up with cold, unreadable eyes. "Grace, you've worked here a long time, but Jonathan and I don't give loans. It's not professional." Grace lowered her head, fighting back tears. "It's not for me, ma'am. It's for my daughter. She's all I have. Please." But Evelyn snapped the magazine shut and replied, "I'm sorry. I can't help you." When Jonathan came home that evening, Evelyn mentioned the request. Instead of compassion, suspicion entered his mind. "If we give in once, she'll keep asking." He muttered, "We hired her to work, not depend on us for charity." Days passed, and Grace carried on with the same patience and love, though her heart sank with every phone call from the hospital. Then, one morning, Evelyn stormed into the kitchen, furious. "Where is it?" she shouted. Grace froze. "Where's what, ma'am?" "My diamond necklace, the gold bangles, and Jonathan's cash. A fortune is missing," Evelyn screamed. Grace's face drained of color. "Ma'am, I don't know anything about that. I would never. Don't lie to me." Evelyn cut her off. "You begged for money last week. Now it's gone. Who else could it be?" Moments later, Jonathan appeared with 2 police officers standing on the staircase. The children watched in shock. "No, Daddy, not Mama Grace," Sophie cried out, her small voice breaking. But Jonathan only ordered, "Take her." The officers locked cold handcuffs around Grace's wrists as the children wept. "I didn't do it," Grace whispered, her eyes full of tears. "I would never steal." For months, Grace sat in a cold gray cell, her heart breaking not for herself, but for her daughter lying in a hospital bed far away. The Harpers pressed charges, and the evidence seemed stacked against her: missing jewelry, vanished money, and a nanny desperate for cash. At the trial, the prosecutor painted her as a thief who had betrayed the family's trust. Grace sat silently with only a weary public defender by her side. The Harper children sat behind their parents, their faces pale with grief. When the day of the verdict arrived, the prosecutor demanded a life sentence. Before the judge spoke, Grace rose to her feet, trembling. "I never stole anything. For 15 years, those children were my life. I gave them all the love I had, even when my own daughter needed me. I asked for help because I was desperate, not because I was dishonest." At that moment, the courtroom doors burst open. Michael, Ryan, and Sophie rushed forward, tears streaming. "Stop," Michael cried. "She didn't do it." The judge allowed them to speak. Sophie clutched Grace's hand, sobbing. "Mama Grace raised us. She's the most honest person we know. Please don't take her away." The room filled with whispers. Jonathan and Evelyn shifted uncomfortably. Then, from the second row, Jonathan's younger sister, Clara, stood trembling. Her voice cracked as she confessed. "It was me. I took the jewelry. I took the money. I was drowning in gambling debt. I blamed Grace because I knew everyone would believe it because of her skin color." The courtroom erupted in gasps. Clara was arrested on the spot. The charges against Grace were dropped, and the judge offered a heartfelt apology. Outside, the Harpers faced Grace with regret. Evelyn's voice shook. "We're so sorry, Grace. We should have trusted you." Jonathan added, "We'll pay for Leah's treatment. It's the least we can do, though forgiveness would take time." Leah eventually received the care she needed, funded by the Harpers. Grace was reunited with the children who loved her like their own mother, while Clara faced her punishment behind bars. The Harpers learned a lesson they would never forget, that compassion must never be clouded by prejudice, and a plea for help should never be seen as a crime.